Okay. So, am I audible? We'll continue our yesterday's talk on the first 2 years of cognitive development. So, basically, through this talk, we are trying to understand that where do we stand today and why do we stand the way we stand today. And yesterday, we tried to understand the cognitive changes and the intelligence that comes to us in our infancy. We then tried to discuss the sensory motor stage of infants, which was basically described by Piaget. So he was a behavioral scientist. So let me see if you guys are able to hear me or not. So in that we spoke about how infants, like babies who are very young, like less than, like in the age of 0 to 1 years, how do they learn and how does it impact us as people when we grow up? I'm not sure I'm audible. Can somebody tell me? Can you listen to me? So thank you for the hearts. I think you guys are able to listen to me if you are sending me those hearts. So the, like we say that infants assimilate incoming information in the form of patterns, and those patterns are called as schemes in the scientific language. So they are born with like a couple of experiences, like already gained experiences from their mother's womb, which is called as sucking, looking, and listening to somebody and grasping. So, and they accommodate them to their experiences once they are out of their mother's womb. So the development of there's another concept related to it which is called as object permanence. So the development of object permanence, basically you would be shocked to know it emerges as young as 4 months. So, what is object permanence? So, object permanence is like when it basically involves understanding that items and people still exist when even you can't see them or hear them. Like this concept was also discussed by Jean Piaget, the same guy who basically spoke about the cognitive changes and the intelligence in the infants. Now, infants is a very small age group, like from the time when we are born till we get to first year of our age, that is called as infancy, like it is called as being infant. So we do this thing about peekaboo with small infants, and then we still try to hide behind something and they try to grab us and um, try to see us, right? So that is an example of object permanence. And this happens when they are really young, like when they are really less than 4 months of age. They start doing it that way. So you do the peekaboo to a small infant, and they would know that you are still behind those hands, right? So it develops as young as 4 months, and it is one of the very important cognitive milestone, because this basically exemplifies that as young as 4 months old, you are still able to know that there is something behind the hand. You are trying to hide yourself behind, say, a book or something, and a child still knows that you are behind it. So, this is a cognitive milestone. This understanding is a cognitive milestone. And this scientist Piaget basically discovered that babies acquire object permanence gradually during the sensory motor period. Now, sensory motor period uh, has basically 6 stages, and it develops in the first 2 years of life of a child. So the six sub stages are like when the child is from birth to 1 month old, and then they are called as neonate or newborns. And in this stage, they have reflexive movements. These movements basically include like sucking, grasping, and even orienting themselves or their movements towards others. They are inflexible, but there is no accommodation at this stage. Therefore, the movements are like random stage, like they'll just move like this, then the heads will move like this. And then the next stage is the sensory motor schemes, which is from 1 month to 4 months old. And they become more refined. The accommodation occurs, they're still like kind of little able to hold on to their heads, not too much, they still rotate a little too much, but there are greater range of actions. And they start understanding the world, that this is this is that. And they become more independent as well, become coordinated. For example, a child could hear a noise and orient towards it, or they see an object and then touch it during this stage. So infants develop primary circular reactions of these actions, and an infant sucking on its thumb, or the habitual utterances as well. So now the third substage is from age 4 to 8 months. First was 0 to 1 month, second one was 1 to 4 month, when you are like in between the age of 1 month to 4 month. The third is the 4 month to 8 months, and right now we are discussing the sensory motor stages of development in you. And you will see, when you will understand these sensory motor stages, like the six sub stages that I'm talking to you about, later we are going to discuss in depth that what happens at each substage, and how consciously and subconsciously it affects you. Like there are different attachment styles that you develop in these 6 stages of development. And when these attachment styles are are not secure type, then you develop into a different kind of adult. When they are like secure, and when they are insecure, you develop into another kind of adult. Now there are different kind of insecure styles as well. So we will discuss after you have understood these 6 substages of sensory motor development in you. Now, for a baby from 4 to 8 months old, at this stage, babies develop secondary circular reactions. These reactions include like repetition and the development of dropping and throwing schemes. Also, babies are learning that their actions have reactions, as in hitting a hanging toy or mobile and seeing that it moves one hit, and that on hitting, and that makes their mom smile. So they develop this dropping and throwing pattern. They develop this sensory motor skill of hitting the hanging toy or mobile and seeing that it moves when it hits, and then when they coo, then the mom smiles, you know. So the important thing to note at this stage is actions are still not intentional from a child, from an infant from 4 to 8 months, and they are separate from being intentional actions. Now the fourth substage is 8 to 12 months. So now in this, after 8 months of being an infant till 12 months of being an infant, the actions become intentional, they become goal oriented, they become more coordinated. They are though less coordinated but become more independent patterns. And to achieve a goal, also, the babies develop object permanence. It is a belief that an object permanence, though they cannot see, they will still indicate that they know about it through active searching for the hidden object. They still have not fully grasped the concept yet, but it's like through error, like A not B error, if not this then maybe this, they try to become more investigative in their approach. They try to look for the object. Now the fifth substage is 12 to 18 months. Okay, and at this substage babies develop tertiary circular reactions, which means they're repeating actions and behaviors, but with more time, they're experimenting with the world. They're searching it everywhere, which means that at this stage, they solve A not B, B not C. They start imitating a larger repertoire of things. They start experimenting, searching. They, when you do something, they start, imitating you. That was stage 5 from 12 to 18 months. Now, the next stage is the last substage of generating or developing sensory motor stages in you, and from 18 to 24 months. And mind you, whatever happens in this period of 0 to 24 months define you as a person in adulthood. This will become clearer after you understand these six substages. Now, from 18 to 24 months, there are mental representations. Like toddlers are able to hold mental representations in their mind. They are able to solve advanced object permanence problems such as invisible displacement, and they are able to join and make believe play. And make believe play is also known as symbolic play, which is when a child uses one thing to stand for something else. An example of this is like when you use a teacup and pretend it to be a fancy tea party, and you try to actually drink from that teacup. So that is also something called as imitation. So at the beginning of the week, in being able to imitate, they try to, till they try to imitate at till the end of it. So, to conclude, I would say that sensory motor stages from for someone from being a newborn to being a toddler, they begin with random movements which develop into coordinated patterns. And the six substages give a detailed look, which I just spoke to you about, at development within the first 2 years of their life. So you understand anything that happens from the 0 to 24 months of your life becomes very crucial in defining your attachment styles. And this attachment style that you develop during this period of time in your life defines who you develop as in a person. So I'm I'm not sure if you're able to hear me. So this way, the scientist gave a great contribution to our understanding of children at that stage. But there was more research conducted in this area by other scientists like Spelke and Belarja, and they studied that object permanence within the context of infants' global understanding of objects. And their research demonstrate that we underestimate how much younger infants really know about objects and the movement of objects. So when when a parent goes to a child psychologist to understand their sensory and motor skills, there is a test that is done on them, which is called as infant intelligence test. So this test is basically focused on their sensory and motor skills only. So, so when the child develops beyond 2 years of his age, this test doesn't qualify a child to be. I mean, this test is not a qualifier of a for a child's intelligence, because it is only based on the sensory, like the perception and the motor skills of an infant when he's from 0 to 24 months of age. So there are more intelligence tests that happen when you grow up. I will talk to you about them after you understand the concept of learning, categorizing, and remembering. So, the first thing you should know is babies are learners. From the first moments following birth, babies are capable of learning in a variety of ways, such as classical and operant conditioning and schematic learning. So, yesterday we took couple of examples in understanding what is classical conditioning, what is operant conditioning, and what is schematic learning. I will explain to you in a bit. Infants use categories to organize information. Babies, as young as 3 months of age, can remember certain objects very well, as their own actions with those objects for duration as long as a week. With age, their memories become less and less tied to specific cues or context. Like yesterday, somebody was asking that how can they remember something that happened in their infancy or childhood. So one example of that I gave him was he can ask for cues from from his parents, or cues from his siblings or people around them. They will tell them that this happened, so this happened. Oh, then this will make you think. When this happened, when A happened, then B happened. When B happened, then C happened. Then C happened. Then what happened? So, and this is called as learning through cueing. So, possibly the most fundamental type of human learning, those that involve responding to environmental stimuli, are clearly present in infants at birth. And you would also be amazed to know that you can remember as far as to what happened in the 40 when you were just 14 months old. Now that would depend upon a lot of things. One thing it would depend on is the repetition of those tasks that you did when you were in that age bracket, and how impactful or how impacting it was when you were growing. How did it, like, make you feel? How did it affect you? So your remembering of those situations would depend on that as well. And plus, if you get cues from your parents or from your siblings or people around you, that would definitely enhance your remembering of those times. So infants' sensory abilities improve and they are better able to respond to their stimuli, including behaviors performed by others through repetitions. The more number of times you repeat a certain task, the more you are able to remember it. It holds true for infants as well. So learning, this was one kind of learning. So now I'm also going to talk about classical conditioning. So there were a couple of scientists who found that this was an example that I shared with you yesterday, that when inexperienced mothers often held nursing newborns in ways that caused the baby's nostrils to be blocked by their breast, so predictably the babies learn to turn away from them. So this is a part of classical conditioning. Now, what is operant conditioning? This is also one of the ways when in through which infants learn. So, like for example, I in this example I elaborated a whole lot on this when music therapists use pacifier activated lullaby systems in neonatal intensive care units. They improve the preterm infants' sucking reflexes, which in turn causes them to gain weight more rapidly. So now, why is this oral behavior of infants, or why is this sucking behavior of infants on their mothers so important? Because it leads to a variety of personality problems if they have not done it this way. So now those personality problems I will discuss in detail after I have explained to you that what are those instances that can cause those personality problems when you are a little child or when you are an infant in the category of 0 to 24 months. So I spoke about the pacifier activated lullaby systems yesterday in detail, and I've given you a little information about it again. So I hope you are clear on it. So by 14 months, infants can differentiate between successful and unsuccessful problem solving models like older children and adults, and they're more likely to imitate people who succeed at an attempted task just at the age of 14 months. Extraordinary. So now I will talk to you about how what about remembering, like how do they remember? So there was this scientist, Caroline, and she demonstrated that the forgotten infant memories can sometimes be retrieved by those infants by using various cues to trigger the association. This is something that I just spoke to you about today, and I spoke about it yesterday at length. That if you want to remember what happened and in that particular situation when you are very little, what can you do? You can use cues you from your parents, from your people around you at that in that age group. So, how do you think infants learn receptive and expressive language? So, these are few things that we have to discuss today. I I already revised everything else with you right now. So there were behaviorists who came with this theory that babies learn language by being reinforced for making word like sounds. So which basically means that language development begins with babbling like small little infants. How do they speak? They're trying to imitate you. right? So while babbling, babies accidentally make sounds that somewhat resemble real words in the language spoken by their parents. So parents hear the word like sounds and respond to them with praise and encouragement, which serve as reinforcers. Similarly, parents ignore some nonsense syllable. Then this process is called as extinction. Now, imitation also plays a role as kids imitate sounds and words from their immediate environments. Like, for example, when a small child say their first words, it is quite natural to shower them with attention. Now, this showering of attention is what? Positive reinforcement. And when there were multi-syllable words, like for example, let me give an example. Refrigerator, refrigerator, like the six syllables. So parents were just elated at that, right? Parents were really happy and they were reinforcing, giving more and more positive, reinforcement to their children. And they spoke more, they learned more, they imitated more, and that is how, through babbling, small infants learn and develop on their learning capabilities. But in psychology, that there's one thing more, that we learn specific words, but there is no explanation on how we put them together grammatically. How does this happen? Now we are moving beyond 24 months of development of an infant. A child's comprehension and production of language, particularly grammar, is an innate capability of his own self. It's a special mental capacity and is called as language acquisition device. It's not, there's no device in your head, but this is how it is referred to. Like, it's your mental capacity to learn the proper grammar, the connotation of the specific language or the culture you are born into, the language of that culture. Have you ever heard a child say, I breaked in? No. You would always find a child saying, I broke it. Have you ever seen any child saying foots? No, they will always say feet. So, what are we trying to observe in this? We observe children applying language rules that they have never been taught. These are examples of over-regularization, a part of language learning in which children extend regular grammatical patterns to irregular words. So these utterances are the biggest challenge of all the scientific community, trying to figure out how are children able to develop their language and how are they able to develop their grammar in the particular cultural language that they are born into, because there is no way that they could be that a language could be acquired through imitation or reinforcement. This language acquisition device which we just spoke about is an innate language processor in the head of a child, allowing a allowing them to employ grammatical rules for which they have never received any formal instruction. So it is a basically sub process of cognitive development and emphasizes a rule governed approach to children's speech. So there were scientists like Lev Vygotsky who believed that language emanates from interactions with people who are important to the child. They learn to interact from their primary caregivers, who in their cases mostly a mother. So they learn the basic uh, the basic capabilities of uh, development come from them. It also comes from the people around them as well. I will prove this to you in later in discussions. So it is very important, and there are certain styles in which a primary caregiver should interact with their infant, which, if they don't do, leads to certain personality disorders when they grow up as adults. So, let me talk to you about a couple of language development milestones that the scientist community generally speaks about. So, babies' earlier sounds. What do you think are the baby's earliest sounds in their life? They're like cries, they're like cooing, then they're like babbling, right? So, like at 9 months, babies typically use meaningful gestures and can understand more words than they can produce. Think about that tiny baby waving her hand and saying bye when they're like really like 9 months old, or like even younger in some cases. The first spoken words typically occur at about 1 year, after which children acquire words somewhat slowly. At about 24 months, they begin to add new words very rapidly in their dictionary of words and are also able to generalize them to many situations. Simple two word sentences appear in children's expressive language at about 18 months of age. Of course, the rate of language development varies from one child to another. Some toddlers display an expressive style in early word learning, while others show a referential style. The sequence of language development seems to hold true for babies in all cultures. Now, this is the same sequence that is followed in babies of all cultures without you knowing that culture. So, telegraphic speech is the two word stage of language acquisition, which is simple and quite efficient. When comparing language development in different cultures, the use of holophrases seem to precede the use of telegraphic speech in every language. There's a lot of value in reading to infants, like reading regularly with young children. It stimulates optimal patterns of brain development and strengthens parent child relationships at a very critical time in child development. And this in turn builds language literacy and social emotional skills that last a lifetime. And you should not think that, oh, my child is just 0 months old, or 1 month old, or 2 months old, or they're very old, very young, or little to understand what I'm talking about. No, it is not like that. They will understand. You are basically helping them understand a lot of vocabulary, a lot of sentences, and they are very good learners. They're very good learners. We would not know that, but they learn so quickly. So it's very important to read to your children. It even leads to their psychosocial development as well. And have you ever seen like a mother talking to an unborn child? How important is that period of time? It is very important. A lot of learning starts even when a child is at a very nascent stage of development inside a mother's womb. So it's very important to have a positive environment around even start from that start of age of a child. Now let's talk about the psychosocial development in the first 2 years of development of a child. So by psychosocial I mean social and personality point of view in a child, point of view of development in a child. So let me take a break and drink some tea. I'm having some chamomile tea, chamomile honey tea. Okay. So, a lot of research has happened in this area of psychosocial development, that is, the social and the personality development of a child uh, in between 0 to 24 months. And it is believed that the formation of a strong emotional connection to a primary caregiver early in life is very critical to healthy child development and has very important implications across the entire lifespan of that particular child. So, I think I'm going to talk to you about the theories of social and personality development tomorrow because we have been together for a very long time and it's a very long session today. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I hope it was useful because now we are getting into the real meat of things, and now we will understand more about how important was how our development took place and why we are the way we are in our adulthood. Thank you for the hearts. So now I bid adieu and good night to everybody for people in the night zone, and good morning to everybody for people in the morning zone. Thank you. Bye.